This wretched skin. Have you ever felt hideous? I'm not talking about just ugly or undesirable. Pretty sure everyone feels like that once in a while. No, I mean truly disgusting, grotesque. If you ever feel like that, then I am truly sorry. I feel your pain. It's so isolating, that feeling. Making others of every human being on the planet, as you're convinced you will never know a single moment of joy again, just because you are you. For most of you, this feeling is probably unfounded. I expect you look at least fine, for the most part. Someone, somewhere will accept you. You are not truly hideous. But I am. I can see it in the faces of the others when I leave my apartment. Perfect strangers recoil from me as I pass. Shop attendants back up against the cigarettes when I go to pay for my groceries, trying with all their power to avoid eye contact, leaving my money on the counter, no doubt so they can spray it with some kind of bleach as soon as I've left. No one wants anything to do with me. I can't blame them. One look at me and you would feel the same. Sure, you might like my story, but you wouldn't like me. I'm not sure why it started, but I sure as hell know when. I was taking the subway home one evening about 2 months ago. It started off as a tickle underneath my shirt, just under my ribs. I thought nothing of it, carried on reading my book, but the tickle progressed into an itch. I just couldn't seem to get it, no matter how hard I scratched. Other passengers started looking at me. I did my best to smile at them reassuringly, but my scratching grew wilder and wilder. Soon the sensation was scuttling around my whole body. Then I didn't care about the others moving away or chiming in with useless, "Hey man, are you okays?" I was not okay. Far from it. Before I knew it, I had hurled my book across the carriage and was ripping the shirt off my back, chasing the itch around my body. It was maddening. I literally felt like I was going to go insane. The train pulled into a station. Doors opened. I burst out onto the platform, whirling my laptop case around me, lopped up into the station. I'm pretty sure I was screaming by that point. Either that or the sight of me batting myself whilst running through the packed station as if I was on fire was enough to draw every set of eyes in the place. No one tried to help me. That's what really stings, thinking back. They just all gawped, or started filming me on their phones and laughing. Pretty sure I went viral. Funny. I shouldered my way into the bathroom in the station, straight to the sink, and doused myself in water from the tap. The itch had subsided somewhat, back down to a tickle as I looked at myself in the mirror. It was not a pretty sight. I'd gouged chunks out of myself, all over my body and face. It looked like I'd been attacked by a wild animal. I suppose I had, in a way. Blood trickled from the scratches and dripped onto the white tiles of the bathroom. Security tore into the bathroom. That was the first time I was aware of something looking at me as if I was a monster. The shock on that guard's face, followed by disgust. It was a reaction to which I would become accustomed. He covered his mouth, asked me, "What's going on in here?" I told him nothing. I was fine. He told me, "I'll have to ask you to leave, sir." Humiliated, I walked through the station with my head hung, avoiding the eyes of anyone looking my way. Security guard escorting at a safe distance. Confusion and in pain. If only I had known then just how much worse it would get. When I arrived home, I got completely undressed and checked the state of my body. Some may ask why I didn't visit the hospital right away. All I can say is I'm not the type to take up space in a waiting room needlessly, not unless I'm sure there's an issue. Besides, waiting rooms are full of sick people. Don't want to catch something. The skin under my shirt was raised in alarming welts, which seemed to shrink as I touched them. They gave off a faint itch, which made me cautious. I didn't want to set them off again. I examined my back, more streaks of red, black in the middle. I looked at them in horror, decided I would visit my GP the next day. I called in sick to work the following morning. They were reluctant to accept, asked if it was really necessary. I said it was, that I thought I needed to go to the hospital. They relented, asked me to try and get a few bits done whilst I was waiting. If possible, could I come in after my appointment? I said I would. Next, I called the surgery, booked an appointment for late morning. Despite having no appetite whatsoever, I forced myself to eat a few spoonfuls of oatmeal, threw the rest in the bin. I tried to open my laptop to get some work done, but I just couldn't concentrate. I was so aware of my skin. It felt like it was festering, constantly buzzing, shifting around my body as if it wasn't even attached anymore. At least it wasn't itchy. An hour before my appointment, I got on the bus from the stop near my apartment. The driver caught a look at me, stared, wide-eyed. "You all right, mate?" I told him I was fine, thanks. I took a seat on the bottom floor, near the back. A few of the other passengers moved away briskly to find seats upstairs. The two who were left behind me huddled into their respective corners, eyes fixed out of their respective windows. By the time we arrived at the surgery, I was the only passenger still on the bottom floor of the bus. Everyone else had fled upstairs or gotten off. The driver looked visibly relieved when I alighted. He let out a breath as I stepped off. I think he'd been holding it as I walked past his cab. Miserable, I walked into the GP surgery. The nurse turned up their noses as if some rancid stench had just wafted in through the door. Just me. Under raised eyebrows, the nurse at the desk asked if I had an appointment. I told her I did. She took my name, asked me to take a seat. Just barely audible as I walked past, "What's that smell?" from one of her colleagues. I fought the urge to scratch the whole time I waited in that room, begging the little screen to show my name. It came in waves, pulsing around my body. I fought an internal battle with each quiver, mind over matter. After 20 eternal minutes, my name showed. I bounded off my seat and into the office. The GP himself balked as I entered, confusion written across his forehead. He asked me what the problem was. I told him. He asked me to remove my shirt. I did. He asked where the problem area was. I laughed at him. Wasn't it obvious? He looked even more puzzled. I gazed down. The welts were gone. The whole thing. Apart from the scratches I'd given myself, my skin looked normal. I said it had been there just this morning. He nodded, poked and prodded, asked how it felt, took my blood, asked more questions about my lifestyle, allergies, and so on. I answered as best I could, trying to figure out what had happened to the violent rash that had covered my skin just hours before. The doctor told me, as best he could figure, the itch had been brought on by stress. The welts I had seen were most likely some kind of hives, a skin reaction to stress. He gave me antiseptic ointment for my scratches, told me to take it easy for a few days. Come back if the symptoms returned. Sheepishly, I asked him if there was a reason everyone seemed to find me disgusting. He looked me dead in the eye, told me he didn't know what I meant. So I made the trip to my office as I was told, little knowing it would be the last time I set foot in that place. Gloria, the receptionist, had always been so polite before, kind even. her face screwed up to half its normal size as I entered. "Gosh, Samuel, what's wrong with you?" she said, not kindly. I told her I was feeling a bit off. "No shit." I went upstairs to my cubicle. Embarrassed colleagues went by, left their desks for the break room. The itch was growing again by that point, flickering under my shirt. I tried to bat it away as nonchalantly as possible. Before long, my boss approached. "What is this, Daniels?" "Sir? You can't possibly think it's acceptable to come to work in this state." I looked at myself. I was dressed the same way as always. Striped shirt under a blue mid-priced suit. Black shoes, not too smart, not too casual, just right. "I did say I was feeling a bit under the weather, sir." "You look positively ghastly, man. What is wrong with you?" "The doctors told me stress." "Stress, eh? Well, either way, I can't have you in here looking like this. What if a client comes by? Or, heaven forbid, head office?" "Yes, sir. Good point, sir. Shall I head home then?" "I would say so. Make sure you keep me updated on those reports too. I want them in by 4 at the latest." "Yes, sir." That was it. He clipped his heels together and marched off as quickly as those wingtips would carry him. I was never particularly close with anyone in the office, but the hostility they all beamed at me as I packed up things was overwhelming. I have never felt so unwelcome in a familiar place. I left in such a hurry that I forgot my Tesco meal deal in the fridge. They probably burned it after it was discovered. I was making my wretched way home when the itch took hold again, much worse than on the train. It coursed around my body, up my spine, right between my shoulder blades, agonizingly beyond my reach. I rolled around on the floor like a dog, desperately trying to get rid of it. More people stopped by, unsure of what they were seeing, taking one look at me and turning away in a mixture of disgust and horror. I begged for an ambulance, and someone called one. By the time the ambulance got to me, the itch was gone. I was sitting exhausted by the side of the road. The onlookers who had called the hospital had since had too much of looking at me and had moved on. The paramedics disembarked and looked me over, faces scrunched up, seemingly unsure of what I was. They checked my vitals, asked if I still needed the hospital. I told them no, probably not. Over the following weeks, my skin tortured me. Every time it would flare up and drive me into a wild frenzy, only for me to call a medical professional, be batted around the usual channels, told it was stress, prescribed antidepressants, sleeping tablets, painkillers, told to see a psychiatrist. None of it worked. All the while, everyone who had set eyes on me had the same reaction: disgust, but always as though they could never quite tell why I was so repellent. Let me tell you, there's only so long a person can go on feeling that way. Hopelessness grows like unchecked mold in isolation. The people who were supposed to help me were powerless. My friends stopped answering my calls, and all the while my own skin was trying to drive me insane, whipping me into a scratching whirlwind without warning, sneering at me with pulsating welts which swelled and vanished even before my very eyes. Whatever it is, this thing in me started to spread around my apartment. It's worst above my bed, where I sleep. I think my breath causes it. Long strands of greenish hair hang down from the ceiling, like cobwebs from my lungs. At first I tried to clean it up and keep things tidy, but really, there's no point. It consumes everything. Slowly but surely. I live on delivery services now. What a time we live in, that a human being can survive easily without ever having to leave their front door. I just have the drivers to set whatever I ordered in the hall. Watch through the peephole until they're gone, so I don't have to see their eyes change as they look at me. They can smell me there, watching them. I spend my days in the darkness of my apartment, filling reports until 5 p.m., sending them to my boss to no response, making dinner, watch TV, go to sleep. On the rare occasion I leave the apartment, I make sure to cover up as best I can so no one can see me. Somehow, even when I'm wrapped in clothing, eyes covered by sunglasses, hands in gloves, people can sense my repulsiveness. They cross the street as I approach, pull their children away from me. Some laugh or take photos. Others just avoid looking at me altogether. Sartre was right. People are hell. But I have come up with a cure to my affliction. The skin is a restorative organ. After it is damaged, it heals. When the cut is deep enough, a scar forms. That is unavoidable, but the skin itself is new. My experiment has only just begun, but I've decided that I am the master of my destiny, the master of my own body. Whenever my skin flares up, starts wriggling off my bones, I isolate the spot, remove it, disinfect the area, and wait for it to heal. The children of my building have taken to calling me the patchwork man. I don't mind. It's almost endearing. Soon I will have a whole new skin, a fresh start. Perhaps someone will call me deformed, but when I am new, I dream they will take pity on me, rather than the hatred I'm met with now. I must be careful not to remove too much each time, just enough to stop the itch, little enough to grow back new. The mold I breathe is spreading around my apartment building now. It has crept under the door and into the hall. I wonder if those who cannot see it will feel my pain one day. Ignored and shunned. They will be told nothing is medically wrong, told to take it easy, get some rest. Some might be sectioned, but the disgust will be there, in the eyes. I pity them already. Soon I will be new, fresh skin, no longer festering.